Hello and welcome to another episode of Champagne Football, the show in which your hosts get drunk and slur their footballing opinions of the past week. With me, as ever, is Becky Thompson. How are you, Becky?
Doing pretty well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. And joining us for one specific reason, soon to be revealed to the listener, we have Danny Clark. How are you, Danny?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me again.
That's all right, mate. Returning to the show and making his debut, we have Callum Room. How are you, Callum?
How's it going, Hal? Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm good. So you guys are two young journalists. However, we do not need you here for those reasons. We just want you simply because you guys are Liverpool fans and you must be ecstatic. I'm going to start with you, Callum. How do you feel? Because I know it's been a weird season.
Yeah, it's been a weird one. Obviously, I'm absolutely thrilled that Liverpool finally got the title after 30 years. But the whole sort of atmosphere for me has been really strange. I have to say, it hasn't felt that big for me. I'm not going to lie, mainly probably because I've been on my own. Usually if we were in Twickenham where we would have watched a game down the pub, would have actually been around Liverpool fans who can celebrate with me. Besides a few WhatsApp messages, that's about as much as I've celebrated. I couldn't even have a drink on the night that we won the league because I had a shorthand exam the next day. And to be honest, it just feels like it hasn't really happened for me. I'm not going to lie, but I'm thrilled for the city, for the club, for the players. But yeah, as a southerner who's living in the south, it doesn't really feel that different.
Yeah, I want to know, Danny, does that resonate with you or do you feel a little bit more happy about it?
To some extent, yes. When I was watching the Chelsea City game, I felt a little bit underwhelmed at the full-time whistle. It was a strange sort of emotions. Obviously, it was amazing to win it after 30 years, and I'd take anything. Given any situation, just to secure that title. But I think it's just the fact that you can't really go out and have a few drinks to celebrate, or you can't see your fellow Liverpool fans, and it's a difficult one. But I think I'm just, now that it's all died down a bit, I'm delighted.
Yeah.
Just can't stop looking at the content of the celebrations. I love it.
Yeah.
I think one thing for me, and it was the nature that it was won in as well. I think because it was won when Chelsea played against City rather than maybe when Liverpool played against City at the Etihad, I think if we'd won it when they were on the pitch, it would have been a lot more elation for me. But maybe because I was watching the game as a neutral, it sort of took the edge off it a little bit. Not saying that it wasn't amazing and I haven't loved it, but I think that did take something away from it a little bit for me.
Do you think you might get some of that feeling watching them lift the trophy at City still on Thursday?
Yeah, definitely. I hope so, especially with the Guard of Honour. But are they actually going to lift it on Thursday?
I'm not actually sure.
To be honest, I'm not sure.
I'm just looking forward to that Guard of Honour. See Raheem Sterling there clapping his hands.
That's the thing, yeah.
After he left Liverpool. I know he's won a league at City since he left, but just seeing his face is going to be glorious.
Yeah, I reckon Joe Gomez is going to love that moment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to revel in it.
But I think you guys make a good point about that Liverpool not winning it. Chelsea won the league for you. I mean, they didn't, but in that moment, it was Chelsea's victory, not yours, directly on the field. And also, you can think about before lockdown. It was evident that Liverpool were going to win the league. At the moment, there's a good 23 points, I think, between the two of you, or 20 odd points between the two of you. So it's not really been a race in the same way. Becky, look, they might not be the most happy Liverpool fans, despite being very happy still. You, as a Manchester United fan, for so long have been able to say you guys have never won the Premier League. I mean, how does that feel?
I mean, you can't argue that they deserved it this year. The team was incredible. Klopp was incredible. So even as a United fan, I can't be too bitter about it. We weren't really in the running at all. But I'm not too upset either because it'll be another 30 years before the next one. So
No way.
I'm not worried.
No chance.
Yeah.
Big talk.
Yeah, that's a silly comment. You'll regret that next season.
The thing is, I can't not say it. It's too tempting. But I know that this team is incredible, and I know that they're going to be a strong team for a while. I'd like to think in a couple years, United will will challenge for it again. We still need another year or two to rebuild, though. I don't think it'll be next year.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, I think what makes it even more special, what makes me even happier, is the fact that although it's taken a little bit of the shine off it this year, that we haven't been able to fully celebrate, and there was a 3-month delay. I think in previous campaigns where we've been close to winning the league, like 2013-14 with Brendan Rodgers and 2008 with Rafa Benitez, those campaigns where we finished second, always seemed like we were sort of stretching or were getting quite lucky. Our defence wasn't quite good. There were sort of like, there were some rough edges. But with winning the league this year, although it's taken a bit of the shine off it, I feel like we're in such a strong position to build now. There aren't really any weaknesses in our team. Everyone's at their prime age. If you look at the front three, they're all 28. Van Dijk's going to turn 29. So this team has got so much more ahead of it. I mean, I think it's a good time. So that's what makes me even happier.
Even like the youngsters coming through, you've got Curtis Jones, who's impressed a few times in the FA Cup. Neco Williams, who looks like a quality right back, but I don't know how much will he even get a chance with Trent in the team. Don't know. Harvey Elliott as well, he's been tipped. So there's a lot of youngsters as well who are really pushing on as well. So even when these players do outstay Liverpool sort of thing, there's these people already waiting, already getting nurtured by Klopp, already getting like the philosophies drilled into them day in, day out. So I think the future is also bright for Liverpool.
Yeah, that is a very good point. But there's always that phrase that you have to bring in maybe a few new faces to keep everybody on their toes. And that is something that we might not see due to the coronavirus obviously impacting the market. But also just because, as you guys say, Liverpool's team at the moment, it's who comes in, who improves that team. I want to know, Danny, I'll start with you. Like where, if you could sort of make a transfer signing, you don't have to say a name, but what area do you think could be improved in? And then, yeah, if you have a name, chuck it out there.
I mean, obviously, I was gutted when we missed out on Timo Werner. I thought that would have been an excellent signing just to strengthen the front three, because I feel there is a big drop-off if one of the front three get injured. I mean, Origi's a good player. Harvey Elliott, I know he's still young, he's a good player, but there does seem to be a notable drop-off. So yeah, I would like to see possibly another winger or another striker that can play in either position, and also probably another left back. I feel like at right back we've got options with obviously Alexander-Arnold, Neco Williams. But I mean, if Andy Robertson, such an important player, I saw when we played against Everton in the restart, he was missing, and so much of Liverpool's play depends on stretching the game wide and his direct running. I mean, Milner's a really good option to have, and Joe Gomez can play left back as well, but they're still missing a lot when Andy Robertson isn't there. So it's difficult, but I would love to see a left back. I don't know who though. I can't think of it.
It's not Moreno.
Not Moreno, no.
Yeah, not Moreno.
Definitely not Moreno.
And yeah, Callum, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think those two are the obvious positions, really. We've got a lot of depth in midfield, potentially a backup centre-back. I'd like to see Dejan Lovren actually leave the club. I think he's been literally frauding a living there for God knows how many years. Probably the last 5 seasons he's been like forcing his way somehow to stay at the club when he should have gone. He's made far too many mistakes and he's a complete liability when he's on the pitch. I mean, that was shown in literally, was it the Everton game? As soon as he came on, it's so obvious for the opposition manager. You just target Lovren and you just expose him. He gets panicked. The players around him clearly get impacted by what he's doing on the pitch. The confidence gets dropped. So I think, aside from the replacement backup left back, a striker to challenge, and then I would like to see a centre back who can either replace any injury for Joe Gomez or Virgil, or to even challenge either the two of them. Not sure who really, because price-wise it would be hard, and to find someone who'd be willing to sit on the bench for the majority of the season as well. But there will be people out there, especially when they see the size of the club and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think the job is to maybe build a bigger squad. Your first 11, it's hard to see how that can be improved, but a season can be defined by a big injury. I mean, Man City lost Laporte this season for the bulk of it. I'm not saying that's been the difference, but without having a backup, replacement, they've struggled. And if that happened to Van Dijk or one of the front three or your fullbacks, you guys are in a bit of trouble. So I can see why you guys would would need to make a few transfers, if not any big names. Becky, as a Manchester United fan, which I'll keep referencing, when you look back at this season and look at the moments that where maybe you felt like, okay, Liverpool are going to do this, is there anything that sticks in your mind?
To be honest, no. I think the players were talking about it after they won the title as well. They always took it one game at a time. And I think as just a football fan watching them, you could tell that they were always just looking ahead one game at a time and not trying to think too far in the future. So I think almost from the start, the way you could tell that they weren't getting caught up in it, maybe around Christmas time, you could tell they were going to do it because they weren't caught up in the idea of it. And I think that was really clear in the way they played. So yeah, that there wasn't really a defining moment, although I still, can't believe that they didn't get the invincible season. I thought that was going to happen. And I know this is a sore point for Danny. So an unfortunate loss.
What about Becky when Liverpool and United were playing each other at Anfield and it was 2-0 to Liverpool and Alisson hits that through ball to Mo Salah, who goes on and scores the last goal in the game. I think it was literally like 80th or 90th minute or something like that. Do you think maybe that was a defining moment potentially?
Nah, because I know United going to Anfield right now, that was never going to end well. But I also remember being the only team to get a draw off of you guys as well. So, we took some points off your season.
That was quite a lucky draw as well, to be honest.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I think that Man United game was maybe the first time the Liverpool fans were singing "We're going to win the league," as a chorus in a crowd. It showed you guys were actually quite hesitant because by that stage you were definitely going to win the league. But it is interesting. Teams seem to have these defining moments. You remember Vincent Kompany last year, that screamer against Leicester. But as Becky said, no moment particularly sticks out because they have been cruising, I think, for such a long time. I don't know if Callum, if there's anything.
I guess not like. I think there's a few games which stand out to me. The 4-0 against Leicester, I think it was on Boxing Day. That was when sort of everything clicked. It was a complete performance. It was just after we'd had that run of fixtures where we'd played in the FA Cup, the Club World Cup in Qatar, and then flown back and then played against Leicester a few days later. Beat them 4-0, I think. And at that point, Leicester were actually unbeaten in the league still. So obviously, I think that was a big defining moment, sort of getting through that stage of the season where potentially a lot of people thought that was a banana slip sort of area where if Liverpool were going to drop points, that sort of run of games could be the moment where they were going to drop the points. And then I guess you could say when we beat City at home 3-1, that pushed the gap to 9 points. Fabinho got that absolute screamer, quite like his goal against Palace the other day. So I think those two games for me stand out as sort of defining moments in terms of probably confidence for the team and then getting through a rough patch, enabling the run to continue.
Yeah, I was absolutely convinced Leicester were going to beat you that game because, as you say, you just come back from the Club World Cup, I think. It was like a matter of days between it. Took Trent out of my fantasy team and then he went and scored. So, you learn not to doubt Liverpool this season. But Danny, what about you? Any defining moments?
Yeah, obviously, I think the Boxing Day win against Leicester was the ultimate statement performance at that time. There was one that sticks out, which was, I think it was the week before we played Man City in November. And the gap at that point was only 6 points, I think. And they were winning their game. They were both 3:00 Saturday kickoffs. And we were away to Aston Villa. And we were 1-0 down after 87 minutes. I think if we'd have lost there, the gap would have been 3 points going into the Man City game, which makes it even bigger. And obviously we were 1-0 down with 3 minutes left. And then a great goal from Andy Robertson. And then a 94th minute from Sadio Mane turned that game around within 4 or 5 minutes. So from going into that game to City with a defeat and only a 3-point gap to then changing that completely and with a win on our backs and a 6-point gap, which was good because that meant that we could even draw the game against City. It would have been a good result. I think for me, because it was so early on in the season, you don't want to sort of feed the beast that is Man City. So that was another knock in their teeth, especially because it was a week before that big match.
Yeah, it is incredible to think that from that moment, well, not from that moment, but across the season, they've just built open such a big gap. It's 23 points now. And of course, City this this weekend or not this weekend. This
Hard to tell which day the games are played
I
on.
don't know what day it is even.
I think it was
They'll
on.
come together.
Was it on Thursday?
Thursday, yeah.
Go on. Next up in the league, anyway, it is City, which is going to be a weird one. We mentioned before that there'll be a guard of honour. I want to know if you guys think whether or not Liverpool care to play a strong team, whether they'll leave it out on the pitch or if they'll already sort of be in holiday mode. And alternatively, we'll start with Becky, if you think City are going to play for pride or if they're just going to think, who cares, league's gone.
I'll let these guys start.
I think it all comes down to whether Klopp and the players want to try and get the record, because is it 100 points that they have to get to or something like that?
Yeah.
City got, was it 101 or was it bang on 100?
Bang on 100. So we need to
Bang
get 101, yeah.
Yeah. So if they're going to push for that, then they'll go full strength, and we'll see the strongest 11. However, there's also players such as Harvey Elliott, for example. If he plays a few more fixtures, or gets a few more appearances, he can become the youngest person to win the Premier League. So that's obviously going to play in the back of the mind of the manager probably. He's probably going to be pestering him on the training field as well, like, oh, come on, like, I want this record. So we might see a few young players pop up here and there. But I would say the majority of the time, we're probably going to field our strongest 11. I guess it also all comes down to fatigue and that sort of stuff with the fixtures at the moment. But I would expect City to probably field their strongest team, maybe with an eye on the FA Cup semi-final coming up.
Big
Depends
game
how
with Arsenal.
Pep wants that, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with Cal on that one. I think that City will field a strong team. I think that to have a chance to beat Liverpool right after they've won the title would still kind of make a statement in some ways that they're still an incredibly strong team, and they do have cup competitions to worry about. And I think that it sends a message to teams that they're going to play in the FA Cup and in the Champions League that they can still beat teams like Liverpool. But that being said, they do have those cup competitions, whereas Liverpool don't have to worry about that now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think if I was Pep, I would be trying to get a psychological edge over City over Liverpool now. Like, you go out there and drill them comfortably, 2 or 3-0 or something, while Liverpool are, with their minds elsewhere. You can really sort of build upon that looking into next season. Danny, I want to know how you think it'll play out, and then I'll get a prediction from all of you guys.
I mean, yeah, I'd be fuming if Liverpool don't play their full strength side against City. I think, obviously, now the league's tied up, I'm already looking ahead to next season. Obviously, I want the records, but I just feel if we can go to City, and they'll play their full strength side. If we can go to City and on the back of winning the title, beat them at their home ground, obviously without any fans, but I think that'll be the ultimate statement going into next season. And I think, I want full strength. Don't want any. Obviously, the midfield might get jiggled around because you've got Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Fabinho. Those places aren't set in stone, but I want the normal back four, the front three. Just want to go full on for it.
Cool. And with that in mind, then, what do you reckon the score will be?
3-1 Liverpool.
Wow, he's confident. Callum?
Well, you obviously always want to hit them for 6 in their own back garden, don't you?
Yeah.
So I'd say I'd like to see the full strength team. I'd like to see Oxlade-Chamberlain get a chance to start. I don't think he's started a game since the restart. I'm a big fan of Naby Keita. I like when he plays, so I'd like to see him in the midfield, probably with Fabinho, even though it'd be harsh dropping Henderson after winning the league and that. But I'm going to back the boys. I'm going to go 2-1. The only reason I don't think it'll be more is because generally there hasn't been as many goals, I don't think, since the restart. And I don't know whether the sort of intensity of the fixture can be replicated without the fans being there.
That makes a lot of sense. Becky, your guess?
So I'm actually going to go out on a limb here and say it's going to be a 0-0 draw. And I partly say that because of exactly what Cal said, that it's hard to replicate that kind of intensity. And both these teams are goal-scoring teams, so I could be absolutely wrong, but I think a draw might be on the cards, and I think it could be quite a closely fought game. So I'm going to go out with 0-0 and hope I'm right.
Yeah, okay. I can see that happening. We've seen a lot of dull games since the return as well. So I'm going to say Manchester City will win this 2-0 comfortably. I saw how drunk the Liverpool players were. I can't think they've recovered in time yet, unless there's a lot of rotation involved. I reckon City will get an early 1-0 goal when it's kind of even, and then Liverpool just won't have the energy nor the care to drag themselves back into it, and then City will sneak another. They'll win 2-0. An uninteresting, fairly comfortable win that will maybe depress you guys, but you guys have been depressed enough this season, so I think it's only fair.
The only thing I'd say about that is they might have gone absolutely mental with celebrations, and hopefully they did. But City have played the extra game in between that. So I think there was an 8-game gap between the fixtures. So hopefully that will play into their hands in terms of fatigue and recovery time. I know they were given 2 days off, I think it was, after the league win, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because City went full strength in their game against Newcastle in the FA Cup. So that does maybe show where their priorities are at, possibly.
Yeah, definitely. I think they'll definitely be trying to win the FA Cup. That's kind of the big one left. Obviously, the Champions League is in a little while, so that's kind of what they're trying to stay focused for. But I also think with that 8-day gap between the game might mean Liverpool again, their minds are sort of off it, whereas City's more on the ball. So it'd be interesting to see. Could work either way.
I think Pep did say that for him, the Newcastle game was a bigger game than the Liverpool game. So maybe that might show what he's going to do in terms of team selection.
Yeah.
Where he's going to give the players a rest and where he's not. But
hopefully he'll give De Bruyne a bit of a rest. I'd love that.
I don't know, fancy football.
Yeah.
Changes priorities, doesn't it, Callum?
Yeah, it depends who you captained on the week, really, doesn't it?
Thank you both to Danny and Callum for joining us for this special Liverpool episode of Champagne Football. Callum, thank you for being with us.
It's all right, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And Danny, as always, it's been good.
Thank you very much.
And Hal, my co-host.
Yeah, congrats Liverpool. Of all the teams that could have won it, I'd rather you than Manchester United.
I have to take that this season, I know, but we're coming for you. Just give us 2 more years.
Give you a decade, maybe we'll see you, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. The ladder, don't worry, we're climbing the ladder. Anyways, thank you so much everyone for listening to this episode, and we'll be back soon with more content.